Attention Channel 25 viewers. You must be a Chicago Cable TV or Prime Cable subscriber and 18 years of age or older to qualify to win any of our contests or drawings. Winners are limited to one prize per day per household. Prizes may be mailed or picked up at our offices during specified hours. Remember, at Showcase Chicago Channel 25, we produce for you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, God bless you. Happy birthday to you. And yay! Do you need some scissors?
If you don't stop your friend from driving drunk, who will? Do whatever it takes.
Janine woke up in a cold sweat with one thing echoing through her brain. Who was this guy in her bathroom?
Meanwhile, Barry was thinking, whose bathroom am I in?
Janine remembered going to the party the night before and getting smashed out of her mind.
Barry remembered getting drunk and acting really stupid.
Eventually.
The whole evening came back.
Oh, I must be really stupid.
I must be really dumb.
What did I do? How did I get myself into this?
Well, what did I do? How did I get myself into this?
What about...
What about
AIDS? Then they both realized, much to their relief, that unlike the rest of us...
They were just cartoons.
Get high.
Get stupid.
Get AIDS.
Hi, welcome to Chicago Passport to the World. We're going to roll back, the calendar, the clock a little bit today. We're going to go back to a time, when radio was, an awful lot to many of us. It was, in some ways, I hate to say this, the TV of our time. But there was a big difference. It was something that required us to pay attention. It required us to use our imagination, and it gave a lot of pleasure, and it's old-time radio. And that's what we're going to talk about today. And there's nobody better qualified to do that than my guest today, and that's Chuck Schaden. Chuck is in the Radio Hall of Fame. He's an historian. He's a collector. And a broadcaster. And
I don't do Windows.
No, he doesn't do Windows, but he certainly does. He's on the air right now, 7 days a week, correct?
Correct, right.
And it's WNIB FM
every Saturday afternoon.
Saturday afternoons, and WBBM AM.
Right, news radio every night at midnight.
Every night at midnight, and with the different episodes and different programs, and before we got on air, we were talking a little bit. Was I a little bit off the mark when I said it was sort of like the TV of our time?
No, well, of our time. I mean, TV is part of our time now, but radio was television without the pictures, you see. And you see, today with television, it's the screen that shows you the picture. With radio, it's your imagination. Your imagination set the scene. Now, the people on radio, the actors and the sound effects men, and the musicians, they set the scene. The writers wrote the stories, but the listener provided the pictures. And that was the real magic of it. See, radio was not a spectator sport, it was a participant sport. Television is a spectator sport. You just sit there and watch it happen. But with radio, you got to get into it. You get into it, and you set the picture tube. You know, you're it. As that black sedan speeding off into the distance, you decide, is it a Chevy or a Ford or a Hupmobile or a Cadillac or whatever. The hero, he's as tall and as strong and as virile as you want him to be, and the heroine is as soft and as sweet and as blonde as you want her to be. Didn't matter what they really looked like. It's what they looked like in your imagination. Those pictures were the important part of it. And the listener, you and I, provided the picture.
Yeah, and you're so right, because as you're talking, I could think of for instances. I'm looking back into my past, and I could be the hero, or I could be the villain.
Sure, right.
I knew what the scenery looked like, or the room,
That's
or
right.
the car.
Right.
And it fit me, you know, and we could both be listening to the same program at the same time.
And if you were listening to Jack Armstrong, you were Billy, or if you had a sister, she was Betty. If you were listening to Superman, you were Jimmy Olsen, the newspaper boy, you know, or whatever. There was always a role for the kids who listened. And you know, Tom, we could listen with our parents in front of that radio together. Mom and Dad and the kids. How did you listen to radio? What were you doing when you listened to the radio?
Generally, I was lying on the floor.
On the floor, right?
You're darn right. my dad was in a chair, so was my mom.
Yeah.
And my sisters, and it was sort of quiet. We just listened.
That's right. And you were all seeing different pictures.
Without a doubt, yes.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt.
When Fibber McGee opened up his hall closet
and all that stuff
and all
fell
the
out.
junk came falling out, you saw perhaps different things than your father saw.
Yeah.
And your mother saw different things too than both of you. So it was just one of the most beautiful things, and that's why it can last. It has lasted so well. It went off the air, you know, by the middle 60s, radio was gone and dead as we remember it. But it has survived in the imaginations and, of course, in all the replays, the stuff that we're broadcasting, and there's thousands of tapes available now. It's an era, a golden age, that is getting additional life because of today's technology.
No, you just took it away from me, because I said, without you, I don't think a lot of our particularly a lot of the viewers that are right now watching this program, some very young people perhaps, that may not have a clue as to what we're really talking about. Stick with us. We're going to give you some bits and pieces of some of that old-time radio from the golden years. You got into this. It's like you're hooked on this. I'm really not sure of how it all started. You know, what was the precipitating factor?
I was a fan. I grew up with radio. I was a kid in the 1940s, and I was on the floor just as you were, and we had a Zenith console radio at the flickering green eye, you know.
Oh, that's my uncle had one of those.
Yeah, and I listened and loved it, and I grew up, and radio grew up, and all of a sudden television was coming in on the scene, and I thought that was going to be terrific. Now we're going to see what these people look like.
In some cases, a big disappointment.
Very disappointing in many cases. Some of the big stars, the personalities could survive. Jack Benny, you kind of knew what he looked like anyway, and things like that. But other shows didn't make the transition. And of course, what we lost then was, as I said earlier, our imagination. So one day I thought, well, enough of this. I'm going to turn on the radio and listen to some of my old friends, you know, the great Gildersleeve and our Miss Brooks and things like that. And they were gone from radio. They were all gone. And I felt that I had let them down because I deserted them, because television was new, and boy, we wanted to see that gigantic picture on that 10-inch screen.
Yeah,
round
sometimes
screen.
with the...
We had a round Zenith. We had a Zenith radio, we had a Zenith TV, but the Zenith TV was round.
Remember those big magnifying pieces of glass they would put over the little dinky? So, it was like...
Or you remember the first color sets. It was a filter they stuck in front of the thing. It had blue and amber and green. You know, it worked only for the ball game.
Or a Western.
Yeah, right. But I missed those radio shows, so I turned them on, and they were gone, and I let them down, and the sponsors let them down because sponsors went to television, and even the radio networks let them down because the radio networks focused all of their attention to television. And they made radio a much more economical package for them by putting on a disc jockey with 3 or 4 hours at a time instead of having to have an orchestra and a cadre of actors and sound effects people and all of these other things. And they didn't need to have any studio audience or anything else. And they pushed it all. They bled radio for what it had done. It started it all, and they moved to TV. So I was disappointed it was gone. And I started searching for audio entertainment. That's what I call it now. I didn't know what I was searching for, but I couldn't find anything on the radio anymore. And I found comedy records. Remember the Bickersons comedy record?
Oh, God, yeah.
Bob Newhart and Shelley Berman and Nichols and May, things like that. So I started getting some of those records and enjoying them, but it wasn't enough.
It wasn't what you were really looking for.
Well, I wanted Grand Central Station, you know. I wanted Let's Pretend and The First Nighter and the Lux Radio Theater.
Oh, that's one of the...
Remember, Monday nights... I dredged, that's what I do. Monday nights at 8 o'clock, we used to get in front of the radio and listen to Cecil B. DeMille say, Lux presents Hollywood.
That's right.
And boy, our imagination brought us into Tinseltown. And they had radio versions of popular movies,
of the movies,
mostly with the big stars from the movies. And in an hour, boy, we were really entertained royally with that.
It was a cheaper way of seeing the film. Well, yeah, because you did. You saw
Well,
it in your
sometimes
mind.
you'd see the film on the screen, and then you'd listen to it on the radio, and you enjoyed it just as much. And sometimes they'd bring the movie on radio a little bit before it opened up in the theater, and then you were rushing out to
well, that's that hype,
to see it.
you know, which really hasn't changed.
It really wasn't called that in those days, though. It was just, it was, but it wasn't. No, but they never used the word hype in the 1930s or 40s. You know, I don't know.
And then there was Life of Riley. I remember that was another one of those.
Life with Luigi.
Oh, dear, Mamma Mia.
Mamma Mia. Yeah.
That's right. That's
little
right. That's right.
You're a little immigrant, he'd say. You're a little immigrant.
Yeah, he always started out writing a letter, you know,
Right.
to his mother, which was then the episode.
And that was set in Chicago, by the way.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Dear Mamma Mia.
Those were good days. Good radio days.
Yeah, they really were, and I enjoy it. And I really, my children, well, they're adults now, but you know, they don't really understand sometimes. And occasionally they might, you know, when I have you on, if they still happen to be around, it's pretty late, with the exception of Saturday, say, but they'll say, oh, and they'll listen for quite a while, you know, but somehow the attention span isn't quite the same.
Well, it's difficult because you have nothing to corral your attention these days. I mean, everything is fast,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, 60-second commercials are now 20-second commercials, and everything has to change. And we've got MTV, and everything is boom, boom, boom. And in radio, I mean, talk about the Lux Radio Theater, sit down and listen for an hour.
That's right.
You know.
That's
and
right.
it could be just a nice story. Even you pay $7 and go to a movie today, and it's got to be 95 minutes of nonstop action and explosions and everything.
I can't take
you know,
that anymore.
You need some. You know, it's
a leveler.
Yeah, it's just very nice and relaxing, and it can be as exciting as you want it to be.
Okay.
See, with radio, Tom, you don't have to see what you don't want to see.
That's right. You are your own filter.
That's right.
Yes.
Well, for example, in a movie or on television, guy shoots you, boom, the blood starts spurting. Right? You might fall, writhe around, everything. It's horrible. Slow motion yet, you know.
Yeah,
on radio,
takes.
Boom, boom, body falls.
Yeah, there's a finality to it.
Well, now you want to see blood? You can see blood. You don't want to see blood? You don't have to see blood. I mean, you govern it. See, you've got the control of the picture.
Exactly.
See? It's not like Rod Serling or the Outer Limits. We've not taken control of your television screen. So you have control of the radio.
No, not at all. Okay, so then you started with these records, and then
well, I said, where can I find these radio shows? They must be around someplace. And I started discovering that there were people who had some of these radio shows. They had recordings of them. And
I mean, people that were associated with the programs?
Yeah, sometimes producers, writers, directors, performers, radio stations. Very few radio stations saved these shows. And in fact, it wasn't until Bing Crosby started pre-recording his show, he started putting his show on record and then on tape after the war, the networks would not permit radio shows to be recorded and broadcast. They would not permit broadcast of recordings. So everything had to be done live. You may have heard the term, we're going to do this second show for the West Coast. They would do.
I remember that.
You heard the Red Skelton show in Chicago at 9:30 on a Tuesday night. It would be playing in New York on the East Coast at 10:30, but 7:30 was too early for that show on the West Coast. So at 7:30, Red would do the show live out of a Hollywood broadcast studio. So we'd hear it in the Midwest at 9 and 10:30 in the East, and then he would do that show again. At perhaps 9:30 or 10:30 on the West Coast. Another studio audience would come in, the same script, and sometimes maybe they would even fix the script a little bit. If they did the first comedy show, they do the first show and they found out this didn't work as well as they'd hoped, the writers might change it. But they had to do 2 shows.
Oh my God.
And that happened all the time.
Oh gosh. Okay.
But then tape came in and then they were able to do just one show. Yeah.
The 2 performances a night. Okay. Tell you what, let's hold on that right now. What we're going to do, we're going to do a lot of things today, as I said. We have the old-time radio here, and we're going to crank up some of those old programs for you to hear and imagine, as Chuck and I did, and still do, because you can still listen to Chuck on BBM or WNIB during the week. But before we do that, let's go out to LaSalle Cragen and LaSalle Tallman, do our banking, and come right back.
By now, you've probably figured out the way things really work. Like, races are more than just bent wires. Increased productivity doesn't just mean working faster. And to make your hopes become real, sometimes you've got to ask for help. At LaSalle, we'll take the time to listen and give you what you need so you can reach your goals. And that's pretty much how it works. LaSalle, the bank that works.
Welcome back, Tam Gabby and my guest, Chuck Shaden. Those were the days, or the good old days. And
they were good days.
You know, and as you were saying, you know, on the collection of the, you know, how many pieces have you been able, or broadcasts
well,
have you been able
you
to
find
assemble?
a few here and there, and you find them from writers, producers, directors, from radio performers, from technicians, engineers, hardly none from radio stations because they mostly tossed all that stuff out to make room for television.
Oh, boy.
But slowly but surely I started collecting in the early 1960s. I had nothing that I copied off the air. I had to go back to get all these things. And I've got a few now. Something somewhat over 50,000 broadcasts from the golden age of radio.
Okay, and the earliest recording or broadcast would be?
Some things from the 20s. I've got Sam and Henry before they were Amos and Andy. And I've got Lindbergh arriving in Washington, D.C. after his flight to Paris, you know. And a few things, not so much from the 20s. You know, the thing is, Tom, they didn't record a lot of that stuff. It was all, as I said, it was broadcasting live. They were doing it live, so they didn't record much. But sometimes a sponsor or a performer said, I want a copy of this show for myself. The Johnson's Wax people who sponsored Fibber McGee and Molly, they wanted a copy of every show that Fibber and Molly did for their own library. So they paid extra to have an NBC Chicago engineer at WMAQ make it a dub of it. So Johnson's Wax had all these programs, and they have been added to our collection, which is in the Museum of Broadcast Communications here in Chicago.
And you recently have given...
I have donated with a little string attached my collection to the museum. The string is I'm still broadcasting on the air with my shows and things like that, but it is the collection that the museum has as its core collection, and the public has access to it through the museum.
Okay, so if I'm watching, as folks out there right now, and they want to hear a full-length broadcast.
Well, there's two ways to hear a full-length broadcast. One, tune into one of my radio shows.
WBBM, which is what time?
Midnight. Every night at midnight for an hour on BBM.
Okay, that's Sunday through Saturday.
News Radio 78, the all-news station.
That's right.
And then on Saturday afternoons, we do 4 hours on WNIB, which is 97.1 FM, a classical music station, Radio Classics on Saturdays.
Up there on Erie there. Yeah.
Right. Or if you go to the museum, you can go to one of the computer terminals and type in the name of a show and say, I want to hear Captain Midnight. And then it'll tell you where Captain Midnight is, and you give that to the person in the archives, slip to them, and they'll take you to a place where you can sit and listen to Captain Midnight. Or Don McNeil's Breakfast Club, or any kind of the radio shows, the First Nighter, all the stuff. A lot of it is right there ready for you. So I'm so thrilled with it because there's a place now for this to stay, for radio to be preserved.
So folks out there, they can enjoy this as well. And tell you what, how about if we, is it okay if we bring up a piece from the past?
This is one of the most, I should say, recognizable sounds from the golden days of radio.
Okay.
Turn it on.
Let me turn it on. Okay, we're tuned. Okay. Let's listen.
A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger. With his faithful Indian companion Tonto, the daring and resourceful masked rider of the plains led the fight for law and order in the early western United States. Nowhere in the pages of history can one find a greater champion of justice. Return with us now to those thrilling days of yesteryear. From out of the past come the thundering hoofbeats of the great horse Silver. The Lone Ranger rides again.
Come on, Silver. Let's go, big fella. I'll Silver. Away!
You know, the Lone Ranger may not be on radio yet, but a couple of Cheerios certainly is still around, and Silver Cup, I think.
Silver Cup Bread was the first sponsor of the Lone Ranger, and that's why we have his horse named Silver.
Ah.
He has his hideout is at an abandoned silver mine, and he had silver bullets.
And you could be like the Lone Ranger if you ate Silver Cup.
That's right. I'm glad we didn't sponsor. He wasn't sponsored by Butternut Bread because it would have hi-ho Butternut, you know.
You'd probably be a big Lone Ranger.
It was one of the most popular radio shows of all time. And that exciting music, the William Tell Overture, you know, and it was really one of the best possible radio shows. And you know, it went off. It started in 1933. Went off the air in 1955.
Long run.
But it has been in syndication ever since. And we play the Lone Ranger on our midnight show on WBBM, so you can still hear the radio Lone Ranger.
Oh, man.
Exciting stuff.
There's another piece you brought along, and this is one of those, you never really knew what this guy looked like when he took on that other identity.
This is where your imagination really, really worked, because Lamont Cranston, a wealthy young man about town.
That's right.
Wealthy young man about town. Went to the Orient where he learned hypnotic powers to cloud men's minds.
And
he became the Shadow.
The Shadow.
Let's tune into the Shadow.
Okay, let's do that. Did the Shadow really know?
The Shadow knew, and we knew too. But you know who knew who the Shadow was?
Who?
Now, the Shadow was Lamont Cranston, right?
That's right, yeah. Wealthy man.
Who? Wealthy young man about town.
Yeah.
There was only one person who knew who the invisible Shadow was. His constant friend and companion, the lovely Margot Lane.
Margot Lane. I forgot about that.
Now, the Shadow was played in the early shows by Orson Welles.
Oh, that's another one I didn't know.
And Margot Lane, the lovely Margot Lane, was played by Agnes Moorehead.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. What a combination, huh?
Oh, look. Boy, some real famous names here.
Absolutely. And both of those people were working on the Mercury Theater on the air, the famous War of the Worlds broadcast. While he was doing the Shadow, Wells was doing the War of the Worlds, too.
Well, I'll be a son of a gun. Okay, and... okay, there was another program that sort of delved into the borderline of reality.
Well, one of the great things on radio were mystery shows. And we had I Love a Mystery.
That's right.
And we had the adventures of Jack, Doc, and Reggie of the A1 Detective Agency, you know. And we had Lights Out.
Oh, yeah.
Art Schober. He would come on the show and with a disclaimer saying, turn out your lights. Turn them out. And if you don't think that you can stand the mystery that follows, turn off your radio, he was. Turn off your radio. Lights out. We had all kinds of programs like that. And we had a famous program that was famous for its opening signature. It was the creaking door of the Inner Sanctum. Remember how the Inner Sanctum?
Oh, I sure do.
I think if you check, you can get it on that radio.
Let's do that now. let's open that creaking door.
Creaking door of the Inner Sanctum.
You betcha.
Good stuff.
Oh.
Good evening, friends. This is your host to welcome you through the creaking door into the Inner Sanctum. Come in, come in. I've been reading my fan mail. Huh? Oh, sure, I get lots of it. Delivered in a hearse every morning. One lonely heart writes, despite your sinister voice, you strike me as a fine gentleman and a homebody. I am companionable, good-natured, unmarried, and I've been hardly dead a year. Won't you please exchange photographs, signed, lonesome. Did somebody say the lady spook out of turn?
Okay. And we're back. And
that was our host, Raymond.
Raymond,
who always opened the creaking door. He was called Raymond. Yeah.
He had to be strong because there's
macabre humor, you know.
Okay, well, let's take a little shift here.
Okay.
In term from the spooky and the supernatural and the eerie and the mysterious to well, a guy and his wife in a famous closet.
Well, that's true. You've got to be talking about Fibber McGee and Molly.
Yeah.
And they lived in Wistful Vista.
Yeah.
And their address was 79 Wistful Vista.
Vista Lane, I think.
And Wistful Vista, that's all.
Oh, I thought it was Lane.
Might have been a lane, but I don't know, Wistful Vista. And they started on radio in 1935. And with Fibber McGee and Molly. They had been on earlier than that and some other things. They came up from Peoria, Illinois. And worked out of Chicago.
It played in Peoria and it kept moving.
Right. And when they first went on the network with Fibber McGee and Molly, the Johnson's Wax Company and their advertising agency said, we want you to do this for 13 weeks, starting in April. I want you to do this for 13 weeks and then we'll see what happens. And Jim Jordan, who played Fibber, said, 13 weeks is not enough. I mean, you're telling me here is April, 13 weeks, we're going into the summer. There's not going to be anybody listening to this. I need more than 13 weeks. We won't do it unless you give us at least 26 weeks. Now, this is pretty gutsy because here's an opportunity for these two vaudevillians to start working regularly in radio with a big network program. But the agency and the sponsors said, okay, we'll do it for 26 weeks. Well, they were off and running, and after 26 weeks, they continued on the air for another 19 and a half years, and they were on all that time.
That's a long 13 weeks.
I had a chance to talk to Jim Jordan, and he said that if they hadn't gotten them to agree on 6 months, 26 weeks, they would have been off the air. They wouldn't have lasted because they didn't go anywhere in the first 13 weeks. So he was really smart.
It took a while to build that audience.
Suggesting that you need the time to build the audience. You can't do other than that. So every week we would love to go to Wistful Vista and see Doc Gamble and Meryl Latrivia and all the other characters who used to come by.
Some pretty strangely named people.
Well, they were wonderful people. Gildersleeve, the great Gildersleeve. Throckmorton P. Gildersleeve was McGee's next-door neighbor.
I think it was Digger Odell? Or no,
he was on Life of Riley, right. Yeah. And people seem to remember that Fibber opened his closet every week, see, and the crashes would come out. But he didn't open it every week. Now, they were on for 20 years, and they opened the closet maybe 160 times. That's all. But you see, this is another keystone of radio.
The conditioning.
They used good taste. They didn't have to do that gag every week just because it was good. Now, you know, you watch some of these sitcoms on television, if the guy bumps his nose on the door one week and it gets a big laugh, he's going to bump his nose on that door every single show no matter what.
Until it's no-nos.
Until the tape is worn out from the laugh track. Yeah. Because there's nobody laughing anymore. But in radio, they used discretion. They knew how to use it, so they worked it casually.
Okay.
Now, I think there's a little clip of Fibber McGee on this radio, but there's no closet on it.
We don't have the closet.
It's more fun with Fibber McGee and Molly.
Okay. Fibber McGee and Molly, let's listen in.
in.
Maybe I should lie down on the floor.
That would be better, yeah.
The Johnson's Wax Program with Fibber McGee and Molly. Of Johnson's Wax Products for home and industry present Fibber McGee and Molly with Bill Thompson, Gail Gordon, Arthur Q. Bryan, and me, Harlow Wilcox.
You know, I can just see Mr. Wilcox, if his house ever catches fire, getting his Johnson's Wax out of the house and then going back after his wife.
Yeah, he reminds me of the way my pop used to be about a job he had when me and him worked at the Popcorn Works in Peoria.
McGee, you never told me about working at the Popcorn Works.
I never mentioned the job Pop and I had at the Peoria Pop and Popcorn plant.
You never did.
Well, boy, I will. You see, Pop was head popcorn popper at the Peoria Pop and Popcorn plant, and I used to love to watch Pop pop popcorn. Because Pop was a pip with a popcorn popper, and the popcorn he popped was Popcorn Plus. I worked over in the pop department myself, see, and every afternoon I'd pop into the popcorn department with a pitcher full of pop for Pop. And we'd sit there popping popcorn by the popperful. poking it into our pussies and pushing it down with a pitcher of pop till Pop and I were almost pooped from the pop. Popping the popcorn, pouring the pop, poking the popcorn, pushing the pop, poking the pip and the popcorn down.
Well, from Wistful Vista, let's go to, well, a fellow that sort of stands out singularly in a lot of ways, and a fellow by the name of Allen, not Steve, but Fred.
Fred Allen, yeah. He was a comedian's comedian. The audiences loved him. He was never in the top 5 or 10 of the popular shows, but he was very well received. And he was admired by all the comedians on radio and in the movies as well. And when he would take that stroll down Allen's Alley every week, that was hilarious, because he would usually have some topical question, and then he had Senator Claghorn and Mrs. Nussbaum and Titus Moody and some others responding to his question. Then they were hilarious. And if you play your cards right, Tom, we can tune in to Fred Allen.
Okay, let's find out about good old Fred here.
Gosh, Portland, it's good to be back in Allen's Alley. Well, let's see what Titus Moody is up to tonight.
Howdy, Bob.
Say, Mr. Moody, you look shorter tonight.
First time I ever wore a union suit and stockings.
Well, what makes you look shorter?
It's trying to keep up my stockings.
Your stockings?
Yeah. There's a little door hangs down on the back of the union suit.
Well, I
know. And when I button that door onto my stockings,
yes,
it pulls me down 6 inches.
Yes, it'll do it every time. Well, Mr. Moody, what do you think about Mayor LaGuardia leaving office?
Why, he's been a good mayor, what there is of him.
Well, what kind of work do you think he should go in for?
He'd be a good man on a farm, Bub.
Well, how do you mean?
He's the only man I know that can milk a cow standing up.
Tell me, Mr. Moody, do you think the mayor is sorry to go?
Oh, I know just how he feels, Bub.
You do, huh?
Yeah, I used to be mayor in my town.
You were the mayor?
Yeah, but I wasn't no LaGuardia.
You mean,
After working around the farm for 30 years...
Yes?
I didn't smell like no little flower. So long,
Okay, Fiorello LaGuardia, I can remember him, and a lot of us...
Well, he was the mayor of New York, and he was known as the Little Flower, and he was a short man, Fiorello LaGuardia, yeah. One of the things about the Fred Allen Show is that because it was topical, it may not play as well today as it did back in the 30s and the 40s, unless someone is there saying, well, there's a few little things you need to know about it. And once you get the setup, then you know it, and you can really enjoy it. And Fred Allen was one of the great humorists.
Without a doubt.
He finally left radio because of competition. The giveaway shows were on, and he thought that was the worst possible thing that could be on radio. I mean, taking away all the creativity, all the originality, and they're giving away big prizes on Stop the Music and programs like that. And they finally killed him because the audiences were tuning in to find out if they were going to be the winner of a bunch of money or something
That's right. No, they're chasing
That's like if the lottery drawing were opposite this program here.
Right. No, what are the numbers? What are the numbers?
But our listeners have taken a chance on us this
That's
time.
right, and we're out drawing the lottery right now as you watch. And what we're going to do here is take another quick break and go out to the LaSalle Craig and the LaSalle Tallman banks, do some banking, and when you do that, come right back. We have a little bit more of old-time radio for you.
By now, you've probably figured out how things really work. Like, nice guys don't necessarily finish last. Luck seems to follow those who put in the best effort. And money can't buy happiness, but there are times when it certainly helps. At LaSalle, we found the best way to make things work for you is to work with you, to help you meet your goals. But you already knew that. LaSalle, the bank that works.
Okay, Fred Allen, one comedian. There was another comedian they had some relationship
Well,
to.
Fred Allen and Jack Benny had a comedy feud for many, many years. It all developed around Jack Benny's violin playing, and Fred Allen said this kid could play better than you, and Jack said he could not, and they just went back and forth. And it was wonderful fun for the listening audience. But Jack Benny had a character that he developed for radio that was not at all much like his own character, but he was, in his broadcast material, he was stingy, and he was very vain, and he supposedly wore a toupee, and he knew that he had money in every bank, and he owned most of the banks, and he had an old car, an old Maxwell automobile, because he was too cheap to get any new car, and did all of those kinds of things. And it was what the public expected of him. And the big thing about the Jack Benny Show was that Jack himself got very few laughs. He hardly delivered a punchline. But all the people around him, Phil Harris, Mary Livingston, Dennis Day, Rochester, Don Wilson, all those people got the laughs mostly at Jack's expense. And most other radio comedians couldn't stand something like that. They had to get the laughs themselves.
Yeah, they couldn't be the straights.
They couldn't play straight. So this made Jack Benny's show incredible, and for 23 years, Jack Benny was almost at the top of his field.
That's how long he was on the air?
1932 till 1955, Jack Benny on radio.
Okay, and then they went to television, but that
he started in the television in the 50s, and then he continued on television until he died.
Yeah, Jack Benny.
Yeah. He left a tremendous legacy of rich radio entertainment.
He sure did. And tell you what, folks at home, let's tune into some of Benny.
Little flower, come on now.
The Lucky Strike program, starring Jack Benny, with Mary Livingston, Phil Harris, Rochester, Dennis Day, and yours truly, Don Wilson.
Yes, sir, I'm getting to be a pretty good barber. I'd better take a little more off this side. And a little more off this side. And a wisp off the top. Say, that looks pretty good now.
Oh, hello, Rochester. What are you doing?
Just cutting your hair, boss. Put it on. Let's see how it looks.
What, was that really Rochester's voice?
Oh, yeah.
His natural voice?
Absolutely.
Man.
The story goes that Eddie Anderson, who played Rochester, as a newsboy, as a kid, as a newsboy, he was shouting papers, extra, and read all about it. And he developed a raspiness in his throat, and he never was able to overcome it. It made him $1 million.
Okay, because it's distinctive.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And again, he always got the better of Jack Benny.
That's right. And then, excuse me, and then Jack was always that.
You could see that even on the radio. Jack used to go to his vault. He'd go long down the stairway, past the alligators and the moat, and the drawbridge,
his wealth.
And all his money would be in the vault. And there is a Jack Benny's Vault exhibit at the Museum of Broadcast Communications in the Chicago Cultural Center. You can go in and you can walk in, and then sirens will go off and the alarms will ring, and you'll be inside Jack Benny's Vault exhibit at the museum. Sure, incidentally, we were talking about Fibber McGee and Molly before. Yeah. There is a Fibber McGee and Molly exhibit at the museum of Fibber McGee's hall closet, and you can open the door. And then stand back, because you're going to experience what those people used to experience when you'd open that hall closet.
All that clutter and stuff and junk and good.
Those two things alone are worth a visit to the Museum of Broadcast Communications. But there's even more. There's Charlie McCarthy is there, and Mortimer Snerd, too.
Oh, the two wooden heads.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I remember that show and how they would poke it. I think it'd be good at this point, folks, that are at home. Museum of Broadcast Communications, it's right here in the city of Chicago. And it's easy to get to. It's right downtown.
It's in the former Chicago Public Library building.
Between Washington and Randolph.
On Michigan Avenue, the Chicago Cultural Center. And the museum is open every day, 7 days a week, Monday through Saturday, 10 to 4:30, and Sunday, 12 to 5. It's free.
Free? The best price.
Free. No admission charge. It's absolutely free.
Okay, and I can get into the vault, and I can get into the vault.
And if you come in on a Saturday afternoon, you can come into the radio studio and see yours truly, because we broadcast our WNIB program out of there from 1 until 5 every Saturday.
So for any time between 1 and 5, you can actually get to say hello. Well, you won't
Isn't
be able because you're broadcast. Well, you're separated by glass.
No, we're not. It's an open studio. You can come in and sit down, and we're playing tapes, and we're talking, and in the middle of it all, I'll be glad to say hello to anybody who stops by.
Oh, well, by all means do that.
And there's no charge for that either.
It's charge to get out. No, by all means, stop in and see Chuck Shaden any Saturday between 1 and 4 at the Museum of Broadcast Communications. And that's at the Chicago Public Library Cultural Center, Michigan Avenue between Washington and Randolph. You can get on either side of the street.
Right.
It's a good place. Anyway, you've got another piece here.
Well, you know, we talked about the nighttime radio shows with most of this stuff. Inner Sanctum and Fibber McGee and Fred Allen. But there was a whole different kind of radio going on during the day. And in those days, there was a lot of women who were at home, right? And they were washing and ironing and mending and listening to the soap operas. The Romance of Helen Trent. Young Widder Brown. Mary Noble, backstage wife. Lorenzo Jones and his wife, Belle.
I don't remember that. I don't remember.
They were all on there. I think it was Helen Trent who set out to prove what so many other women wanted to prove, that she could find romance even though she was 40 and older.
Yeah.
See?
You know, the reason I know I remember some of these programs is one time I was sick for a few weeks, and the only thing I had was the radio, and I said, oh my God. I was pretty young. Some of it I sort of went over my head.
Yeah, but you could. I listened to it that way too. I'd be sick, and I'd listen to the radio, and you could catch up right away because they spent all that time telling you what happened before.
Happened, you know,
and the story moves this a little
weeks.
bit, and then it would tell you what's going to happen the next time, and then you're not sick again for 2 years, right?
And you
turn it on, you pick it up.
Okay.
They were called soap operas because most of them were sponsored by soap.
Soap companies.
Do you recall Oxydol's own Ma
that's right.
Perkins?
And that's what we're going to do.
So we can tune into Ma Perkins,
Let's
America's
do that.
mother of the airwaves.
Oxydol's own Ma Perkins. And now for Ma Perkins. Well, is Ma going to learn the truth about the cousins at last? Yes, Ma told Shuffle that she would ask some questions about the matter of Sylvester denying that he took Willie's and Evie's money. We know that Sylvester did take that money, and Shuffle is sure of it. But Sylvester lied to Ma about it, and that's what Ma has promised to find out.
Okay. Do you think if
Ma
I
never
tune...
did find out. It took her forever, but she never found out.
She never did.
There was someone, you know, one of the things you couldn't say on radio was pregnancy. You couldn't mention the word pregnant on radio.
Know that.
Never. No, not in those days.
Oh my gosh.
So they would, they kind of frowned on saying she is expecting.
She's with
But
child.
they would say she's going to have a baby or she's going to become a mother or something. There was a maternity on that show that lasted 2.5 years, I think, from start to finish.
That's a heck of a
They dragged the stuff out, you know.
What a gestation. Baby came ready to go to college. That's fine.
But those were good days, and you could get hooked on those shows and enjoy.
Oh, without a doubt, because I certainly was hooked on it.
And they were companions to the people at home. Our Gal Sunday, the story of a little girl from a mining town out west.
That's right.
Married England's most handsome Lord Henry Brinthorpe. Who was Superman on another network.
Yeah, and what it was some lady ironing away there, trudging, you know, so how come I can't marry that most handsome lord?
That's right. Well, I got to do these shirts, you know.
Yeah, it was, a form of escapism, which I guess the TV soaps provide today, because some of those scenarios are just improbable in terms of people's lives.
Yeah, well, but you see, they're hour long, too. They got to jam so much stuff in it. These old radio soaps were quarter hours. From about 9 in the morning till maybe 5 o'clock in the afternoon, one right after another, 15-minute soap operas. Life can be beautiful.
As the World
Goldbergs.
Turns.
That was television.
No, that, okay.
You're
Are you
showing
sure?
your youth.
No, I thought, okay.
No, As the World Turns was...
No, there was something with a world thing or whatever. Well, anyway. Then we had some other kinds of programs.
Well, there was another type of radio, and it was after-school radio.
Ah.
After-school radio. And that's when we listened to the Tom Mix Ralston Straight Shooters, and Tom Mix, Tennessee Jed, The Adventures of Superman, Little Orphan Annie.
Oh, that's right.
And Jack Armstrong,
All-American.
the All-American Boy. Have you tried Wheaties? Best breakfast food in the land. And you know, we used to send for all the stuff.
Oh, God, was tons of it.
Decoders and the pedometers or hycometers.
Yeah, the hycometer was a little round thing.
That's right.
And you'd strap
clip
it in.
on, and you'd walk around.
Walk along, and it would
click
click
off the mileage.
And I would walk and walk and walk, and I'd look, and it was...
no mileage.
It was...
You get secret decoders.
Yeah.
And they had periscopes. Now, you seldom got into the water to look into periscopes, so they said it would look around the corner of a building, see? So you could look this way, see? And what did you see? Some kid over here looking this way.
That's right. That's right. And then I remember my atomic bomb ring, which was...
That came from the Lone Ranger, believe it or not.
Yeah, I was really surprised
the
to hear
atom
that.
bomb
I don't
ring.
remember.
Doesn't make a lot of sense. Actually, it came from Cheerios. It was a General Mills premium, but it was advertised on the Lone Ranger show. And it was a little bomb on there, had a little tail on there, and you could put a little message in there, a little piece of paper in there.
Secret compartment.
But there was some kind of...
Well, you look in it.
Yeah, you'd look in it,
like
you'd
flashes.
see like atoms breaking out. What you did, you had to hold your ring up to the lamp. So you'd hold the ring up to the lamp and get the light on there, and then you'd quick run into your closet and close the door, and then you'd look at this. See, I mean...
Oh, yeah.
We didn't have television. You see, you just looked at...
And that was right at the end of World War II. I remember that.
Oh, yeah. Well, the atom bomb ring came after the bomb.
Yeah, and they had, all kinds of other... I remember I was telling you about the cardboard sheet with the airplanes. You could cut them out.
Kellogg's Pep.
Yeah, and it'd be like a Spitfire or a Messerschmitt or whatever it was.
And they packed some of those planes. They had little balsa wood planes. They packed right into the package of cereal, which was good because then you didn't have to send away for anything. Like their little Pep buttons. We had Pep pins too, with the comic strip characters on it, and you could get those in the boxes of cereals. Yeah. We're playing Superman every Saturday night at midnight on WBBM.
Oh,
Continuing Adventures. Superman versus the Atom Man. Radio stuff.
Oh, that was right in the around the 50s or so.
46, 45, 46, yeah.
Okay, and we do have one besides
Well,
Superman.
now here's one where you used to send away and get your secret decoder, and you'd listen and you'd decode the message, and what would it say? Drink Ovaltine.
That's right.
Captain Midnight.
All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay. Wait.
Yes, Captain Midnight, brought to you every day, Monday through Friday, by the makers of Ovaltine, America's favorite food drink. Now, have you heard the news? The news about that marvelous new two-piece, bright-colored shake-up mug Captain Midnight has for you? That big, handsome, two-in-one shaker-upper you use to make ice-cold, chocolatey shake-ups to drink every day? Well, sir, Captain Midnight has one for you almost as a gift. And listen, it's something you want to send in for tonight, for sure.
But you do have something. Yeah. Okay, well, welcome back. And
I had one of those, too, those shake-up mugs they talked about.
Oh, yeah, for the Ovaltine?
Yeah,
that's right, yeah. It took forever to dissolve sometimes.
That's right. Yeah, that was the problem with it. It wouldn't dissolve.
Yeah, it was like, well, sorry if...
No, now they have new improved Ovaltine and it dissolves.
Yeah, it's probably
no
some
shake-up mugs
chemical
anymore.
accelerator. No. Anyway, some of those premiums you might be able to find at Chuck's store. It's Metro-Goldwyn Memories. Right up here on Chicago's northwest side, just east of Central Avenue, 5425 West Addison, 736-4133. That's Metro-Goldwyn Memories, 5425 West Addison, 4133. Besides radio shows, which you can buy copies of and that, there's some movie memorabilia, which is just
yeah.
incredible.
Well, we have a lot of the radio shows at the store. We have we carry video of the old movies, the classic movies. No current stuff, but the good old stuff. Yeah, and we've got posters and gift items and stills and books. If you like to read about radio, television, the movies, we got it all there. Yeah.
It's you can spend the whole day in there.
You can spend a couple of decades in the store.
Yeah,
you know.
very true, very true. Metro Golden Memories.
And there's no charge for browsing ever.
No, that's just like the Museum of Broadcast Communications. No charge.
That's right.
Anyway, stop by and see it. Get over to the museum. Get over to Metro Golden Memories. Over at 5425 West Edison. We're about running out of time here, but we have another cut here before we go out here. And, well, Freeman Gosden, I think.
And Charles Correll.
And Charles Correll.
They were considered to be radio's all-time favorites as Amos and Andy. They were so popular, Amos and Andy were so popular that movie theaters advertised on the marquee that they would stop the picture and pipe in the radio show when it was time for the broadcast. Because if they didn't do that, people would not go to the show. So here you're sitting in the movie house, 7 o'clock at night comes on, the lights go up, the screen goes dark, and the manager wheels out a big old console radio and with this plugged into the wall, and he turns it on. 250 people sitting in the theater sit there and laugh and listen to Amos and Andy.
Okay.
If you were walking down the street on a summer night, you could, no air conditioning, people had their windows open, their doors open, sitting on the front porches. You could be walking along the street and listen to Amos and Andy coming from every house and not miss a line of the dialogue.
Okay.
That's how popular. And they say telephone usage dropped by 50% when Amos and Andy was on the radio because people were listening and not calling. And when it was over, it is also said that the demand on the plumbing facilities in the country went up because people waited to go to the bathroom until after the show was over.
Okay, well, I'll tell you what, we've got a cut of Amos and Andy. Let's enjoy it.
7 million, 8 million, 10 million.
Is I blue? Is I blue? Tell everybody. Say, Andy, what is you figuring over there, son?
Well, Amos, now that we is in New York, I'm going into broker business. I'm figuring on the money I gonna make here. I'm counting on being another J. Ping Pong Morgan.
Yeah, well, I think Wall Street, Andy, is a little too high for us, son. But I tell you what, we ought to get some kind of job.
Yeah, that's right. We don't want to keep on nibbling on our savings here.
You know, I got the evening paper here. I think we could look into help on it, Andy, and see what they got in there.
Yeah, give me that thing. Let me see here. Look at this news item here. It'd say we is exporting cheese to France, and all the Frenchmen is happy about it.
Where do it say that, Andy?
Right here in this headline. Look at there. Thousands cheer as Limburger arrives in Paris.
Well,
they were really funny, weren't they?
I know. It was. They were really funny. Although today, some of that has been condemned, by the politically correct and that. But I think, in the context of the times, it was.
Well, I think that it was sincere humor, and it was good stuff.
Because they were dealing with the universals of human frailty and all those other things that make for a laugh. It really, and to be honest with you, Chuck, I do miss the old-time radio, although we don't have to miss it because we still have Chuck Shaden on WBBM every night, Sunday through Saturday at 12. That's midnight, and that's 780 on the AM dial. And WNIB FM on Saturday, 1 to 4, correct?
1 to 5.
1 to 5, rather, excuse me. And that's 97.1 on the FM dial. So if you've enjoyed the few cuts that we've done here, by all means, tune in. It's our competitor, radio, but it's the great competitor. It's the stuff that, I grew up on and you grew up on.
It doesn't deserve to die, so we keep it alive. And I guarantee you, anyone who tunes us in and gives us a whirl and listens to the radio shows will be hooked all over again on the wonderful, wonderful entertainment that the ear can hear and your imagination can picture.
I know, you know, and I'd like to second that. In fact, I guarantee that if you do, you'll love it. And the Cinnamon Bear, which you run,
yeah, every Christmas time.
Every Christmas time. I remember my mom trucking myself and my sisters down to Weebolt's.
Right, searching for the silver star.
It was, I mean, this back around 47, 48. Yeah. What a journey, you know. Yeah, the Cinnamon Bear.
Right.
Those were really great days. Museum of Broadcast Communications is open again from what time to?
Every day, 7 days a week, 10 a.m. to 4:30 p.m., Sunday 12 to 5.
12 to 5. Right. And that's the place where they can also, the folks, if they come in on Saturday, have a chance to see and talk with Chuck during his broadcast of the WNIB FM 1 to 5 program. Other than that, we're going to sign out here with a piece from Old Time Radio, which is?
Ben Burney, the old maestro himself. Au revoir, he says.
Au revoir. Okay, what we're going to do is say thanks a lot for joining us today, and until next week, Tim Chasson, Do Widzenia, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again.
You all may tune in again. Keep the old maestro always in your scheme. Yowza, yowza, yowza. Au revoir. This is Ben Burney, ladies and gentlemen, and all the lads, wishing you a bit of pleasant breeze. May good luck and happiness, success, good health attend your scheme. And don't forget, should you ever send in your requester, why, we'll sure try to do our best, yowza. Au revoir, upon cheerio, a bit of a tweet, God bless you, and pleasant dreams.
Looking for an affordable computer? Cook County Computers has a computer for you. For as little as $61 a month, you too can own a 486 multimedia computer featuring a 420 meg hard drive, fax modem, double-speed CD-ROM with 8 CD titles and preloaded software. All this for as low as $61 a month with no money down, easy credit, easy financing. Other packages from $486 to Pentiums for as low as $45 a month. Take advantage of this great offer. Call Cook County Computers today at 1-800-278-8500.